Well, we want to welcome you again to the Wednesday night Bible study for the STONECREST Church of Christ. We are as pleased as good punch each Wednesday evening to have you join us for a study from the Word of God. We recognize that you had and that you have a plethora of other places where you can go and study the Bible on Wednesday night. And you choose to study with us. And we want you to know how grateful we are for your choice. And we're delighted to be able to study the Bible with you. Now, we began a series of messages on last week on the book of Galatians. And I spent the entirety of the time trying to help you to understand something about the background of the book. I want to continue in that vein of thought on tonight because we always have to understand the book from the intention of the author. Uh, you know, Paul is the writer of this particular epistle, and you always want to know why he wrote it. What were the conditions? What was the situation that prompted the writing of this particular letter, and not just this letter and this epistle, but any book in the Bible that you read? You want to start out by knowing something about the background of the book and something about the background of the author. That goes a long way in helping us to rightly understand and interpret what the author was trying to get across. Now, let me review a couple of the things that we said on last week in order to move forward. I suggested to you that the Bible is culturally situated communication. Now, you see that graphic on the screen. Let me take a moment to explain that to you again. When the Bible is written, it was written, watch this, at a certain time, in a certain language, in a certain communication style. It used the culture of the people that were receiving the correspondence. Now, that's critically important because if you're not careful, you'll interpret it because, watch this, it's in our language. And that's a good thing. What you are reading is an English translation. Now, that's most helpful to us. But see, we assume that because we are reading uh, an English translation, uh, we can understand it based upon our English language and our English culture and our English situation. Now, that's not necessarily true. What is true is because it is an English translation, what the translators tried to do, and in most of the cases were successful in doing, is taking words from one language and translating them into another language, and in this situation, English. Now, that's helpful, but you also have to understand what those original words meant in the language in which it was written. Because be mindful of this, that the Bible was not originally written in English. It wasn't written in Spanish. Originally, it was written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. And what we do is we translate from those languages into our own languages. Now, be mindful of this. While it is helpful to read an English translation, now I can turn around and get you one of my Greek New Testaments here, or get you one of my Hebrew manuscripts here, and you'll look at that. You'll look at it and say, "Well, preacher, thank God, somebody has translated it for us into English." Now, that's good and that's helpful, but be mindful that the people who first received it in their language, and for the most part, they understood the words. You and I are reading translated words. Watch this. That don't always mean the same thing in our language as the author intended. So when I say to you that the Bible is culturally situated communication, I'm trying to get across to you that a language was used in a culture, and the people in that culture with that language, watch this, for the most part, automatically understood what the writer was trying to get across to them. Now, our work is made a little more difficult and a little more challenging because we need to be sure that our English word corresponds to what the writer in his language was trying to communicate. So the Bible then is culturally situated communication. In other words, not only was it written in a certain culture with a certain language, the writer was writing to a certain situation. you and I, again, we are challenged to do a little more work because we need to find out what the situation was, what's going on in the situation that has occasioned the writing of the letter. And then the third thing there is, watch this, it is culturally situated communication. Now, uh, uh, what I want you to understand is this. You and I, for the most part, read and write. As a part of our culture, when we went to school, when we went to preschool, when we went to kindergarten, one of the first things that they taught us was our ABCs, and they taught us our numbers. In fact, when I was growing up, and this is in the last century, uh, now don't put me with a neighbor of Noah and building the ark. Now I don't go that far back, uh, but I go back far enough that they taught us uh, to read, to count, and to write. Okay, you miss what I say. They taught us reading, writing, and arithmetic. we learn how we learn how to count. You know, our numbers. We learn how to divide and multiply and did all that. And later on, we did geometry, we did algebra, and some of us even did trigonometry. But I want you to watch this and calculus. Now, I want you to watch this. When they taught us how to write, they taught us to write two ways. Number one, they taught us, you know, uh, how to write cursive. Mm. And then they taught us how to write in a non-cursive kind of way. I'm sure there's a term for that. But most people don't in the generations behind me don't do cursive writing because for the most part it's not taught anymore. But we were taught to write in a cursive kind of way. Um, Now, this is what I'm trying to get across to you. While that was fundamental to us, most people in the Bible didn't read and didn't write, including kings, prophets, priests. What you mean they didn't read it, didn't write? Well, they did. Watch this. There was no need to because they lived at a time in a culture where the basic form of communication was what is called orality. That is, it's oral. See, you and I live in a culture and in a time where it is necessary to read and to write. But the Bible was written in a culture at a time where most of the people who received it couldn't read it and they could not write. Watch it. It was not necessary. I see, and I can sense some frustration on your part because again, you and I live in a culture that mandates reading and writing in order to understand. Watch this. We have these devices called smartphones. Uh, I have an iPad here. Um, I'm using a a computer to be able to communicate with you. And though I am being oral in my presentation, you'll notice that uh, alongside of my orality, I've written some stuff, put it in a form using an app called PowerPoint. So, in addition to your listening to me, you can also read what I have written on these slides for better communication, for better apprehension, and for better understanding. Uh, Now, that's our time. But in the Bible, most people didn't read and write because, watch this, it was not necessary nor been mandated by the culture. And you have to understand that because if not, you will treat the Bible, watch this, too literally. You, and I know preachers and I know members and I know church folk who are so literal that if you don't say it exactly like the King James translation says it, then you're not sound and you're not orthodox. And that's unfortunate, but that is the attitude and the disposition of far too many people in the Lord's church. Oh, what I'm trying to say to you is simply that please understand that the Bible is culturally situated communication. Now, if you notice the next graphic, I say to you, while we may appropriately feel that the Bible was written to us, we fail to understand that it was written for us. What do I mean by that? I simply mean this. When Paul writes the this document called Galatians, uh, the letter was addressed to them. in their culture, in their language, in their region, based upon their particular situation. Now, well, then how then is the Bible relevant to us? Well, in this way. When we find ourselves with this particular situation, watch this, that situation is addressed. In other words, you and I are responsible to find out what the Bible meant to them. Mm. And whatever it meant to them, it means exactly the same thing to us. But you have to find out what it meant to them. See, our problem is this. Our challenge is this. Many of us open up the Bible and we want to find something personal for us. Well, I'm going through this situation with my husband or with my wife or with my children. And then, by golly, you find a passage of scripture uh, that in some sense speaks to your situation. Say, oh, that's my verse. That's my life verse. Well, praise God for that. But you have to find out what that verse meant to the people in which the writer wrote to. And then watch this. And then gather the principle and apply it to your own life. That's responsible biblical interpretation, or what we call exegesis. Now, don't make up your issues and force your issues and concerns on the biblical text. And far too often, that's what happened in our Sunday school classes, in our Bible classes, in our Bible study. We take our issues and our concerns and we force them upon the biblical text. And watch this. We do it with our culture. We do it with our language. And then watch what we also do. We also try to bind their culture on us. Ooh. Let me try that again. We bind their culture on us. Romans 16:16. Salute one another with a holy kiss. The churches of Christ salute you. Now, uh, in their culture, when they greeted one another, they greeted one another with what the writer calls a holy kiss. In other words, they would kiss you. Women would kiss women. Men would kiss men. Women would kiss men. Men would kiss women. Watch this. That was an acceptable form of greeting watch this, in ancient cultures. In fact, I've been in some of those cultures. I have traveled to 3 different countries on the continent of Africa. I should never forget when I first went to South Africa and was greeted at the airport by men and women. And I was greeted on the basis of their culture. And they greet one another with a kiss. I'm not talking about anything salacious here. But I will tell you, that was very uncomfortable for me based upon my culture. Now, I didn't say it was wrong for them to do that, but because I was in the context of their culture, they greeted me the way their culture greeted people. Now watch this. I just cited to you a passage of scripture, Romans 16:16. And if you just want to get more technical about this, um, that is an imperative, which means it's a command. Watch this. We're commanded to greet one another with a holy kiss. Watch this. It's still a command. But that's not how we greet people in our culture. Now, for some of us, um, uh, you know, we greet one another with a kiss. But, but for the most part, in our culture, we'll fist bump you, we'll high five you, we'll shake your hand, we'll even embrace you. Those are the ways in which we greet one another in our culture. But some people will argue, well, that's a command, which means on Sunday, strangers and members alike, um, well, you got to kiss because it's a command. Well, again, you have to understand that you can't bind somebody else's culture on us. And watch this. And neither can we bind our culture on somebody else. All right, now, I said all that to say this. Um, and I want you to hear me. And this is where we began last week. And I want to bring it back to your attention today. Watch what we do. If you watch the screen, we watch movies with little to no background of either the book, the genre, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, or the historical situation that occasioned the movie. Well, watch this. When we watch movies, we just start watching movies. We turn on the channel and woo, man, it's a good movie right here. Oh, this looks like it's going to be a good movie. And uh, we just want the movie. We don't oftentimes look at the information uh, that introduces the movie or the information that follows the movie. We just start watching the movie. And that's what we do. Unfortunately, this the same way we read the Bible. We just open up the book of Galatians and we start reading. So what's wrong with that, bro? B? Well, it's not necessarily wrong with it, but at some point, you're going to have to read enough, uh, pre-read uh, to find out. Okay, first of all, well, the Galatians. See, it didn't tell you that just in the reading, because the people who received it, who they were. see, the people who received it knew who they were. They knew where they lived. They knew their culture. They knew their language, and they knew the situation, and they knew why they were being written to. See, you and I don't. We just start watching the movie. Um, Notice on the screen in the background, um, an all-time favorite movie of mine, and I'm sure that you've seen it with your children. I saw it dozens of times as a kid coming up. It was called uh, The Wizard of Oz. Now, we enjoyed the movie, but watch this. Come here close now. The movie has a background. The movie has a history. The book of Galatians, as you see on the screen, like the other epistles, is what we call in theology, in in serious Bible study, and in the academy, as an occasional document. Okay, now, uh, what in the world is uh, an occasional document? Something has precipitated, something has caused, something has occasioned the writing of the book of Galatians, of the book of Thessalonians, of the book of the Ephesians, of the book of Hebrews. And watch this. And any of the other epistles throughout the New Testament, the book of Corinthians, the book of Romans, something, some situation has precipitated, caused, or occasioned the writing of these particular documents. That's why we call them in the academy occasional documents, because the writer sees some need to write the letter because of something that has transpired or is transpiring in the churches that he's addressing. Galatians is not a city. Corinth is a city. Ephesus is a city. Laodicea is a city. Colossae is a city. Rome is a city. Galatians is not a city. It's a territory. It's an area. And in this particular area that that Paul had visited, watch this, on all three of his missionary journeys. On his first missionary journey, this church in this area called Galatia was established by Paul. And now a situation has developed that's troublesome for him and for them. And now he has to address that situation in this document that we call the book of Galatians, or the epistle to the Galatians. Now, let's look at this movie, The Wizard of Oz, with that kind of thinking and background in mind, and then we'll come back to Galatians. On the screen, I have this graphic. An all-time favorite movie is The Wizard of Oz. Oh, but look at that next statement. The movie, The Wizard of Oz, is based on the book by L. Frank Baum. Ooh, I just thought it was a movie. It is a movie. But the movie is based on Baum wrote a book. And from the book, Hollywood saw, man, this is a good book. So let's take the book and make it into a movie. See, you and I just started watching the movie. without reading the book. Oh, let me try that again. We watched the movie. We didn't read the book. Now watch this. Uh, the movie starred uh, a redheaded actress by the name Judy Garland. In the movie, she had a little dog named Toto. She lived with her aunt and uncles on a farm in Kansas. Watch this. We're watching the movie. We didn't read the book. Uh, in the movie, there is a tornado, and she's caught in the tornado. Not literally, but she, uh, her family goes underground to get away from the tornado. She hits her head, and she starts dreaming, and she finds herself in the dream in a far away land with just she and a dog, Toto. And in the movie, she's trying to get back home. And in her journey to get back home, she runs into some characters, some witches, some good witches, some bad witches, and she runs into some friends that she developed along the way. She's given certain kinds of information that if you want to get back home, you got to get to watch this, the Wizard of Oz. And if you can get to the Wizard of Oz, he can help you to get back home. All right, now watch this. There. We didn't read the book. We watched the movie. But the movie is from the book that we did not read. Now come here. To young children, what I just described for you, this delightful tale was about a young girl named Dorothy and her cute dog, Toto. She overcame the odds and defeated the scary, powerful bad guys with some help from her new friends that she found along the way. Now, to the young children, that movie had that simple meaning. But let me say it to you one more time. That's the movie. But the movie is from a book by L. Frank Baum. Now, follow me carefully for the next few minutes. If we observe the story closely and poke around in the historical background of the time Baum wrote the book, a different meaning surfaces. Oh, okay. Boom. I think you missed it again. We watched the movie. We didn't read the book. But the movie is from the book. When Baum wrote the book, one of the hottest political debates going on in America when Baum wrote the book was over the issue of whether America should continue to use the gold standard as the basis for the dollar or switched to silver when he wrote the book. The historical context suggests now that when he wrote the book, the main line of the book may be a reference to the central political issue of the day. And although the yellow brick road in the movie led to the great Wizard of Oz, once Dorothy arrived there, she discovered that the Wizard of Oz wasn't the Wizard of Oz. He was a fake and he was a fraud. See, Dorothy's real hope lay in her shoes. And in Baum's book, the shoes are silver. Well, wait a minute. But in the movie, they were ruby red. Oh, that's the movie. We saw the movie. We didn't read the book. Yeah. So when we step back and look at the book from historical perspective, perhaps the book falls into the classification political satire. And watch this. And two, gold is measured by the ounce. And when you abbreviate ounce, it becomes whoo, Wizard of you got it. Now, according to this line of interpretation, the characters in the story then probably represent different segments of American society. The scarecrow represents the former, supposedly no brains. The Tin Woodman would represent the factory workers, no heart. And the cowardly lion perhaps represent the political leadership of the country. We also meet the Wicked Witch of the East. That's the East Coast establishment. That's Wall Street. That's the business empire. And then the Wicked Witch of West, the West Coast establishment. That's Hollywood. And watch this. Between the East Coast establishment and the West Coast establishment, do you remember where Dorothy is from? The heroine of the movie? Kansas. And where is Kansas? Middle America. You see what he's doing in the book? So here's the question. Who's right? I mean, are kids wrong to interpret the story as a simple tale of good triumphing over evil? It's a storyline in the book. I'm sorry, that's a wonderful storyline in the movie. That's what I came away as a little kid with the story that good is finally going to triumph over evil. That's a wonderful storyline. But here's the question: was that Bob's intention? I mean, are you going to ruin it for the kids? Remember, Bob didn't write the book for kids. In fact, Bob did not write the book for a movie. It was Hollywood who took the book and said, oh man, this is a wonderful story. Watch this. Hollywood does it every day. I mean, they take good stories every day and make them into movies. And Hollywood, watch this, has the license to be able to do that. Because after all, they have bought the rights to the book. Once they done paid for the rights, Hollywood can do whatever they want to do. They can do whatever they choose to do with the story and the message. Ooh. But you always have to go back and ask, what did the author intend? Did Baum write the book to appease some parents, who wanted their children to see a good movie, see a good story? No, that's not why Baum wrote the book. It was a good movie. It still is a good movie, one that I would highly recommend. But this is a question we need to ask. Did not the author intend it to be read as political satire? Are we wrong if we understand it otherwise? What is the meaning of the story? And watch this. And who determines that meaning? Now, next week, I'm going to show you another movie, and then we're going to be ready for the book of Galatians. Because you need to understand the history and the background of why Paul writes this message to the church at Galatia. You see, watch this. What I would encourage you to do is read the book. Read the book. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to take the reading of the book and put it in some historical background and context for you. Now, watch this. You would have read it. But I want to put it in historical background and context and to show you what the author intended. Now, let me let you in on a little cue here. Galatians is what we call an apology. We'll leave you with that. I'm going to put it on the screen for you under the purpose of writing, and I say that Galatians is an apology. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what's he apologizing for? Now, see, you have just interpreted apology based upon our culture and our understanding of that word. See, because our English word apology, oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. That's not what the Greek word apology means. He ain't saying I'm sorry. In fact, when you read the letter, he will never say I'm sorry. Because apology is a technical term, watch this, for defense. Huh? Say, now he's not apologizing. Because the technical term for our English word apology, based upon the Greek word apologia, means a defense. He's defending something. He's not apologizing for anything. Now, what I want you to do in preparation for next Wednesday night study is to read the first two chapters and pay careful attention of what he's defending. All right. Until next Wednesday night. May the Lord of the harvest bless you, and may he bless you real good.